The bride wore white. The groom wore a gun. Evelyn Cross signed her life away before she could legally buy champagne, handed over like currency to a man who looked at her the way bankers look at collateral. Roman Valenti didn't promise to love her. He promised her a nursery and a security detail. Their wedding night, a contract briefing. Their honeymoon, a fortress with armed guards and medical appointments already scheduled. She thought marriage meant partnership. He taught her it meant production. If you want to see how a gilded cage becomes a battlefield, stay until the end. Like this video and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The dress cost more than most people made in a year, and Evelyn couldn't breathe in it. White silk clung to her ribs like a second skin, boned corsetry forcing her spine straight, her shoulders back, her chin up. The seamstress had pinned her into place 3 weeks ago, with the kind of clinical precision usually reserved for surgery, and now she stood in front of a floor-length mirror in a suite at the plaza, looking at a stranger. "You're beautiful," her mother said from somewhere behind her, voice brittle with something that wasn't quite pride. Evelyn didn't answer. Beautiful felt like the wrong word. Prepared, maybe. Packaged. Delivered. Her mother stepped closer, fingers cold as she adjusted the veil. Margaret Cross had the kind of face that photographs well. Sharp cheekbones, pale eyes, a mouth that knew how to smile without meaning it. She'd been doing it for decades, ever since she married into the Cross family and learned that survival meant performance. "Remember what we talked about," Margaret said quietly, smoothing invisible wrinkles from Evelyn's shoulder. "Tonight is just the beginning. The hard part comes after." "The hard part," Evelyn repeated. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Producing an heir." Her mother said it the way other mothers might say doing your homework or cleaning your room. Matter of fact. Inevitable. "That's your job now. That's what this is for." Evelyn's stomach turned. She'd known, of course. No one had pretended this was a love match. The Cross family needed the Valenti alliance, needed their money, their muscle, their political reach. And the Valentis needed legitimacy, the kind that came with old money and older names. Evelyn was the transaction that made it all work. Still, hearing it said out loud like that, clinical and cold, made her feel like livestock. "I know," she managed. "Roman is not an easy man." Margaret's hands stilled on Evelyn's shoulders. "But he's practical. If you do what's expected, he'll take care of you. That's more than most women get." The door opened before Evelyn could respond. Her father stepped in, already dressed in his tuxedo, looking like he'd just come from closing a merger, which, in a way, he had. "Car's ready," Thomas Cross said. He barely glanced at his daughter. "We're on schedule." Margaret nodded, stepped back, smoothed her own dress. "She's ready." Thomas looked at Evelyn then, really looked, and for half a second something almost human crossed his face. Regret, maybe. Or just the discomfort of a man who'd spent 18 years treating his daughter like a chess piece and now had to move her off the board. "You understand what this means?" he said. Not a question. "I understand. The family is counting on you." "I know." He nodded once, satisfied, and turned toward the door. Margaret followed. Neither of them hugged her. Neither of them said they loved her. By the time Evelyn walked out of that suite, trailing 6 feet of silk and lace, she felt like she'd already died, and this was just the funeral procession. The ceremony happened in a blur of organ music and camera flashes. The plaza's ballroom had been transformed into something out of a magazine spread. White roses everywhere, candles in crystal holders, silk draped from the ceiling like clouds. There were easily 300 people in attendance, all of them dressed like they were attending a coronation. Politicians, lawyers, business executives, and woven through the crowd like veins of darker blood, the unmistakable presence of Roman's people. Evelyn saw them as she walked down the aisle. Men in expensive suits with dead eyes and bulges under their jackets. Women dripping in diamonds, smiling with mouths that knew how to keep secrets. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a summit. A merger of two worlds that had been circling each other for years, waiting for the right moment to collide. And there, at the end of the aisle, was Roman Valenti. He was 32, tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that would have been handsome if it wasn't so carefully empty. Dark hair, darker eyes, a jaw that looked like it had been carved out of something unforgiving. He wore his tuxedo like armor, and when Evelyn reached him, when her father placed her hand in his, Roman's grip was firm and completely impersonal. He didn't smile, didn't soften, just looked at her the way someone might look at a signed contract, acknowledging receipt, nothing more. The officiant spoke. Evelyn heard maybe half of it, something about love and honor and cherishing, words that meant nothing here, in this room, with this man. When it came time for vows, Roman's voice was steady and flat. I do. Evelyn's turn. Her mouth was dry. The room felt too hot, too bright, too full of watching eyes. I do. The kiss was brief, professional, and cold. Roman's mouth barely brushed hers before he pulled back, already turning toward the crowd. Applause erupted. Cameras flashed. Someone started playing music, something grand and orchestral, and just like that, it was done. Evelyn Cross was gone. In her place stood Evelyn Valenti, a woman she didn't recognize and wasn't sure she wanted to. The reception was worse. There were speeches. Her father talking about family and legacy, Roman's uncle saying something in Italian that got knowing laughs from half the room. There was dancing. Though Roman held her like she was made of glass, he didn't particularly care about breaking. And there were endless introductions, a parade of faces and names she'd never remember, all of them looking at her like they were evaluating a purchase. You did well, someone told her. A woman in her 50s, dripping in emeralds, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Roman needs someone like you. Pretty, well-bred, young enough to, well, you know. Evelyn smiled because she had to. Thank you. Just don't expect too much, the woman continued, leaning closer like they were sharing secrets. Roman's not the type to play house, but if you give him what he wants, he'll be generous. That's how these things work. The woman drifted away before Evelyn could respond, leaving her standing alone in a room full of people, feeling more isolated than she'd ever felt in her life. Roman found her an hour later, near the edge of the ballroom. He didn't say anything at first, just appeared at her elbow like a shadow. We're leaving, he said. Already? I have work in the morning. He said it like that explained everything. Maybe it did. The ride to his mansion was silent. They sat in the back of a black SUV with windows so dark Evelyn couldn't see out, couldn't see anything except Roman's reflection in the glass, stone-faced, distant, already somewhere else. There were 2 more SUVs flanking them, full of men with guns. Security, she'd been told. Protection. It felt more like a convoy transporting a prisoner. The mansion was in Westchester, far enough from the city to feel like another world. They passed through gates that looked like they could stop a tank, drove up a long tree-lined driveway, and finally stopped in front of a house that could have been called a lot of things. Estate, compound, fortress. But home wasn't one of them. It was massive. Stone and glass and sharp angles, lit up against the night sky like something out of a Gothic novel. Beautiful in a cold, intimidating way. Evelyn stared up at it as Roman opened her door, offered his hand to help her out. Welcome home, he said. The words were correct, but the tone was all wrong. He made it sound like a statement of fact, not a greeting. Inside was just as imposing. Marble floors, high ceilings, artwork that probably cost more than Evelyn's childhood home. Everything was clean and sharp and expensive, and none of it felt like anyone actually lived there. A housekeeper appeared, older woman, silver hair, kind eyes, and introduced herself as Maria. I'll show you to your room, Maria said gently. Our room, Evelyn corrected automatically, then realized her mistake when she saw Roman's expression. You have your own suite, he said. East wing, 2nd floor. Maria will get you settled. He was already walking away, disappearing down a hallway before Evelyn could process what he'd just said. Separate rooms. On their wedding night. Maria touched her elbow, gentle. Come on, dear. You must be exhausted. The suite was beautiful. Sitting room, bedroom, bathroom, bigger than Evelyn's childhood bedroom, but it was also a very clear message. This wasn't a marriage. It was an arrangement. And whatever Evelyn had been hoping for, whatever small, stupid part of her had thought maybe, just maybe, this could be something more than a transaction, died somewhere between the marble staircase and the moment Maria closed the door with a soft, sympathetic click. Evelyn stood in the middle of her new bedroom, still wearing her wedding dress, and felt the full weight of what she'd agreed to settle over her like a shroud. She was 18 years old, she was married to a stranger, and the only thing he wanted from her was something she wasn't sure she knew how to give. Sleep didn't come easy. Evelyn eventually got out of the dress, had to call Maria back to help with the buttons she couldn't reach, and stood under a shower hot enough to burn, trying to wash off the feeling of being watched, evaluated, measured. When she finally crawled into bed, the sheets were expensive and cold, and every sound in the massive house felt magnified. Footsteps in distant hallways, doors closing, the hum of security systems she didn't understand. She must have dozed off eventually because she woke to sunlight streaming through windows she hadn't thought to cover. For a few blissful seconds, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back in, and with it came the sick realization that this was her life now. This room, this house, this man who'd already made it clear she was an obligation, not a partner. Maria knocked softly around 8, bringing coffee and what she called breakfast. Fruit, toast, yogurt, arranged on a tray like Evelyn was convalescing from something. "Mr. Valenti left for the office an hour ago," Maria said, setting the tray on a side table. "He said to tell you to make yourself comfortable. Explore the house. There's a gym, a library, a pool. Whatever you need." "When will he be back?" Maria's smile was gentle and sad. "He works long hours, dear. Don't wait up." And just like that, Evelyn's second day of marriage began the same way her first night had ended, alone. The house was a maze. Evelyn spent the morning wandering through rooms that all felt like showpieces. A dining room with a table that could seat 20, a library with leather-bound books that looked like they'd never been opened, a gym that was all gleaming equipment and mirrors, empty and waiting. Everything was perfect and cold and unused, like a museum exhibit of how rich people were supposed to live. She found the pool on the ground floor, floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over manicured grounds that stretched to a tree line she couldn't see the end of. There were security cameras everywhere. She'd started noticing them, small and dark in corners, watching, always watching. In the kitchen, she found Maria preparing lunch. "Can I help?" Evelyn asked. Maria looked surprised, then pleased. "You don't have to do that." "I want to. I don't know what else to do." So Maria taught her how to make fresh pasta, the two of them working in comfortable silence while Maria shared small pieces of information like gifts. She'd worked for the Valenti family for 15 years. Roman's father had been a hard man, demanding, violent when he drank. Roman had grown up in this house, learning early that showing weakness was dangerous. "He's not cruel," Maria said carefully, kneading dough with practiced hands. "Just careful. He doesn't let people close." "Did he ever?" Evelyn asked. "Let anyone close?" Maria's hands stilled. "There was a girl once, long time ago. She died." "How?" "Wrong place, wrong time. Roman's world is dangerous, Mrs. Valenti. The people who love him become targets. I think he decided it was safer not to love anyone." The words settled in Evelyn's chest like stones. She'd married a man who'd amputated his own heart to survive, and now she was supposed to what? Live in his house, bear his children, exist in the margins of his carefully controlled life? "He wanted this marriage," Evelyn said. "Why, if he doesn't want—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "He wants an heir," Maria said gently. "Someone to carry on the family, the business. That's different from wanting a wife." "Right." Evelyn's voice came out flat. "Of course." They finished the pasta in silence. Roman came home after midnight. Evelyn knew because she was still awake, sitting in her sweet sitting room with a book she wasn't reading. She heard the cars pull up, heard the front door open and close, heard his footsteps on the stairs. They paused outside her door. For a long moment, nothing. Then they continued down the hall. He didn't knock, didn't check on her. Just went to his own room like she didn't exist. 3 days passed like that. Then a week. Roman left early, came home late, and the only time Evelyn saw him was at dinner, when he bothered to come home for it, where they sat at opposite ends of that massive table and made stilted conversation that went nowhere. "How was your day?" she'd ask. "Fine." He'd cut his steak with surgical precision. "Yours?" "Fine." And that was it. That was their marriage. Until the morning, Maria knocked on her door with a different kind of message. "Mr. Valenti wants to see you," she said, "in his study. Now." Evelyn's stomach dropped. In the week and a half she'd been living here, she'd never been summoned, never been to his study. The sudden change felt ominous. She found him on the first floor, west wing, in a room lined with dark wood and darker secrets. He was standing behind a massive desk, still in his suit from whatever meeting he'd been in, and he wasn't alone. There was another man there, older, gray-haired, carrying a medical bag. "This is Dr. Reeves," Roman said without preamble. "He's going to examine you." Evelyn's blood went cold. "Excuse me?" "A physical, to make sure everything is in order." The clinical detachment in his voice, the way he said it like he was discussing a car inspection, made something snap in Evelyn's chest. "No." Roman's expression didn't change. "It's standard procedure." "I don't care, I'm not livestock. I didn't say you were." "Then stop treating me like it." Her voice came out louder than she'd intended, sharp with weeks of suppressed frustration and humiliation. "You don't talk to me, you don't touch me, you barely look at me, and now you want me to submit to a medical exam like I'm some kind of—" "This is what you agreed to," Roman cut in, and for the first time since she'd met him, there was something other than ice in his voice. Heat, anger, barely controlled. "When you signed that contract, when you walked down that aisle, you knew what this was." "I knew it was a business arrangement. I didn't know I'd be treated like property." "You're my wife." "Then act like I'm a person." Silence crashed down between them, heavy and crackling. Dr. Reeves cleared his throat awkwardly, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Roman's jaw worked, something dangerous moving behind his eyes. "Wait outside," he told the doctor. Dr. Reeves left quickly, closing the door behind him. Roman moved around the desk, and Evelyn forced herself not to step back, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. "You want to be treated like a person," Roman said quietly. "Fine. Here's the truth. This marriage exists for one reason. You produce an heir, you secure the alliance, and in return you get security, wealth, and a life most women would kill for. I never asked for wealth, or—" "No? Then what did you ask for?" He was close now, close enough that she could smell expensive cologne and something underneath it. Whiskey, smoke, danger. "Because from where I'm standing, you walked into this deal the same as me. You want to pretend this is something it's not? That's your problem. But don't stand there and act surprised when I treat this like what it is." "And what is it?" "A contract." The word landed like a slap. Evelyn felt something inside her crack, something she'd been trying to protect since the wedding. Hope, maybe. The stupid, stubborn belief that maybe this could be bearable. "Then I want to renegotiate," she said. Roman's eyebrows rose slightly. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. If this is a contract, if I'm here to do a job, then I want terms. I want to know what's expected, when it's expected, and what I get in return besides room and board." For a long moment, Roman just stared at her. Then something shifted in his expression. Not quite respect, but close. Acknowledgement, maybe. Recognition that she'd just stopped being a passive participant and started being a player. "All right," he said. "You want terms? Here they are. You will undergo regular medical checkups to ensure you're healthy. When the doctor gives clearance, we will begin trying to conceive. You will maintain your health, follow his recommendations, and present yourself appropriately at any social functions I require your attendance at. In return, you have access to everything in this house, a monthly allowance, and my protection." How romantic. His mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. This isn't romance. This is reality. "And when I'm pregnant, what then?" "Then you carry the child to term, deliver safely, and raise them according to standards we'll agree on." "Standards?" Evelyn laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean I get to be a broodmare and a nanny? You get to be a mother, to a child who will want for nothing, except parents who love each other." Something dark crossed Roman's face. "Love is a luxury we don't have. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." Evelyn wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to run out of this house and never look back. But she was 18 and trapped and terrified, and the only power she had was the power to negotiate. "Fine," she said. But I have conditions too. Such as? You don't summon me for medical exams, you ask. You treat me like a human being, not an acquisition. And when you need me for social functions, you give me advance notice. I'm not a doll you can dress up and trot out without warning. Roman considered this. Anything else? Yes. Dinner. Once a week, just the two of us. You answer my questions honestly and I'll answer yours. Why? Because if I'm going to spend the rest of my life in this house, I'd like to at least know the person I'm sharing it with. He was quiet for a long time. Then, Friday nights, 7 p.m., don't be late. It wasn't a yes exactly, but it also wasn't a no. And the doctor? Evelyn asked. I'll reschedule, with advance notice. The way he said it, dry, almost ironic, made Evelyn realize he might actually have a sense of humor buried under all that ice. Fine. Fine. They stood there 2 feet apart, staring at each other like opponents who'd just agreed to a temporary truce. Then Roman stepped back, returned to his desk, and just like that the conversation was over. Evelyn left before he could dismiss her, closing the study door harder than necessary behind her. Friday came. Evelyn spent the afternoon in her suite, trying to figure out what to wear to dinner with a husband who didn't want her. She settled on something simple, a black dress, heels, hair pulled back. Armor, basically. She went downstairs at 6:55 and found Roman already in the dining room, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking at his phone with the kind of focus most people reserved for defusing bombs. I'm not late, she said. He glanced up, checked his watch. No, you're not. He pocketed the phone, gestured to the chair at his right. Not the far end of the table this time. Progress, maybe. Maria had outdone herself. Some kind of Italian dish that smelled incredible, wine that probably cost more than a car. Roman poured for both of them without asking if she wanted any. You're 18, he said, but I assume you've had wine before. My father let me have champagne at parties, for appearances. Of course. He raised his glass. 2 appearances. Evelyn clinked hers against his, took a sip. It was good, smooth and dark, and just bitter enough. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Roman surprised her by actually starting a conversation. Maria says you've been helping in the kitchen. Is that against the rules? No, I just didn't expect it. Why? Because rich girls don't know how to cook? Because most women in your position wouldn't bother. He cut his food with the same precision he seemed to apply to everything. They treat this place like a hotel. Maybe I'm not most women. No, Roman said, and something in his voice made Evelyn look up. You're not. It wasn't quite a compliment, but it felt close. Close enough that Evelyn didn't know what to do with it. You promised to answer questions, she said. I did. Why did you really want this marriage? When he started to answer, she cut him off. Not the alliance, not the heir, the real reason. Roman set down his fork, leaned back in his chair. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my father built an empire on blood and fear. When he died, I inherited it. The business, the reputation, the enemies, everything. But empires like ours don't last without legitimacy, without roots in something older than violence. Your family has that. History, reputation, connections that don't come from the barrel of a gun. This marriage gives me that. So I'm a coat of paint, making you look respectable, if you want to put it that way. And the heir? Insurance, succession, making sure that when I'm gone, everything I've built doesn't collapse. He picked up his wine, studied it like it held answers. My father taught me that the only thing that matters is legacy, what you leave behind. That's a lonely way to live. It's a realistic way to live. He met her eyes. Your turn. Why did you agree to this? Evelyn hadn't expected the question turned back on her. I didn't have much choice. Everyone has a choice. Not when your family's business is failing and the only thing keeping it afloat is an alliance with someone who has enough money and muscle to scare off the creditors. She took another sip of wine, felt it burn down her throat. My father made it very clear. Marry you or watch everything we have disappear. So you sacrificed yourself. Don't make it sound noble. I was terrified. Are you still? The question caught her off guard. Was she? Terrified of Roman, of this house, of the future stretching out in front of her like a prison sentence? Yes, she admitted, but I'm also angry, and I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter. Roman nodded slowly, like she'd just confirmed something he'd suspected. Fair enough. They finished dinner with something that felt almost like a conversation. He asked about her childhood, what little of it hadn't been consumed by etiquette lessons and family obligations. She asked about his work, and he actually answered, though in broad strokes that left out anything too incriminating. By the time Maria cleared the plates, Evelyn felt like she'd seen a glimpse of something human underneath Roman's armor. Not much, but something. Same time next week, Roman said as they stood to leave. You're actually going to keep doing this? I made a deal. He said it like that explained everything. Maybe it did. Evelyn went back to her suite that night feeling not hopeful exactly, but less hopeless. Like maybe, just maybe, there was a path through this that didn't end with her completely losing herself. She should have known better. The doctor came back 2 weeks later. This time Roman asked first, left a note on her breakfast tray, formal and distant. Dr. Reeves will be here Thursday at 2 p.m. for your checkup. Let Maria know if you need anything. Evelyn almost said no out of spite. But she'd agreed to this, and backing out now felt like giving Roman ammunition. So Thursday at 2, she sat in a room that had been converted into a makeshift medical office and let Dr. Reeves examine her like she was applying for a job. Blood pressure, heart rate, blood work. A physical exam that was professional but still humiliating. Questions about her medical history, her cycle, her family's history of fertility issues. Everything looks good, Dr. Reeves said when he was done. You're young, healthy. I don't foresee any issues. He said it to Roman, who'd been waiting outside. Evelyn heard them through the door, the doctor giving his report like she wasn't even a person, just a specimen. Roman thanked him, and then footsteps, and then the house was quiet again. That night at dinner, their third Friday, Roman brought it up. Dr. Reeves says you're cleared. Evelyn's fork stilled halfway to her mouth. Cleared? Medically for proceeding. She set the fork down carefully. You mean for you to get me pregnant? Yes. The bluntness of it, the complete lack of pretense, made something in Evelyn's chest go tight. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Are we scheduling that too? Roman's jaw tightened. I'm trying to be considerate. Considerate would be treating me like your wife, not a business transaction. You are a business transaction. The words hung between them, ugly and true. Evelyn felt something inside her crack wider, that fragile hope she'd been nurturing shatter into smaller and smaller pieces. Fine, she said. Then let's get it over with. Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood, held out his hand. Come with me. She didn't want to take it, didn't want to follow him up the stairs to his suite, didn't want to be in his bedroom with its massive bed and cold furniture and complete lack of anything personal. But she'd agreed to this. She'd signed the contract. So she took his hand, cold and impersonal, and followed him. Okay, it was clinical. That was the only word for it. Roman touched her like she was fragile and temporary, like he was completing a task he found distasteful but necessary. There was no tenderness, no warmth, just mechanical precision and grim determination. When it was over, he rolled away, put his back to her, and said, You can go back to your room now. Evelyn lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling more alone than she'd ever felt in her life. Then she got up, gathered her clothes, and walked back to her own suite without saying a word. She cried that night, quietly, into her pillow where no one could hear her. Not because it had hurt. It hadn't, not really. But because this was her life now. This cold, empty transaction was what she'd signed up for, what she'd agreed to, and there was no way out. 3 weeks later, she took a pregnancy test. It was positive. Evelyn told Roman at dinner. She'd spent all day trying to figure out how to say it, rehearsing different approaches, but in the end, she just blurted it out between the salad and the main course. I'm pregnant. Roman's fork paused. He set it down carefully, looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. You're sure? I took 3 tests. They were all positive. I have an appointment with Dr. Reeves next week to confirm. Good. He picked up his wine, took a sip. That's good. That was it. No celebration. No acknowledgement that this was supposed to be a momentous occasion. Just good, like she'd told him the car had been washed or dinner was ready. Evelyn felt something inside her go numb. Yeah, she said. Good. The rest of dinner passed in silence. When it was over, Roman went to his study. Evelyn went to her suite. And somewhere in the massive empty space between them, the last fragile thread of connection snapped. She was pregnant with his child, living in his house, carrying his name, and she'd never felt more alone. The doctor confirmed it a week later with blood work and an ultrasound that showed something the size of a grain of rice. Evelyn stared at the grainy black and white image while Dr. Reeves explained gestational timelines and prenatal vitamins and things she should avoid. Roman stood against the wall, arms crossed, watching the monitor like it was displaying stock prices. Everything looks normal, Dr. Reeves said, but given the importance of this pregnancy, I'd recommend weekly checkups for the first trimester, just to be safe. Whatever you think is necessary, Roman said. Evelyn wanted to ask if she got a say in this, but she already knew the answer. The baby wasn't hers. Not really. It was the product they'd contracted for, and Roman was simply ensuring quality control. I'll have Maria adjust your diet, Roman told her on the drive home. More protein, less caffeine, doctor. Reeves will send over a list. I can read a pregnancy book. I'd rather trust a professional. I'm the one who's pregnant, and I'm the one making sure nothing goes wrong. He said it without heat, just flat certainty. Like her opinion was a minor variable he'd already accounted for and dismissed. Evelyn turned to look out the window, watching Westchester roll past in a blur of expensive houses and manicured lawns. 6 months ago, she'd been planning for college. Now she was 19, married, pregnant, and angrier than she'd ever been in her life. The house felt smaller after that. Or maybe Evelyn just felt more trapped. Maria started following Dr. Reeves' instructions with the kind of militant precision usually reserved for heads of state: portion-controlled meals, scheduled rest periods, daily walks around the grounds with one of Roman's security guards trailing 20 feet behind like she might make a run for it. It's for your safety, Maria said when Evelyn complained. I'm walking in circles in my own yard. Mr. Valenti's orders. Everything was Mr. Valenti's orders now. What she ate, when she slept, which parts of the house she could access. The gym was off limits, too much risk. The pool too. Even the library had certain sections that were suddenly closed off, doors locked without explanation. Evelyn started testing boundaries just to see what would happen. She stayed up past her assigned bedtime reading. She skipped a scheduled rest period to help Maria in the kitchen. Small rebellions that felt pathetic even as she committed them. Roman noticed. You're not following the schedule, he said at dinner 2 weeks into the new regime. I'm pregnant, not sick. Dr. Reeves was very clear about the importance of routine. Dr. Reeves isn't the one living like a prisoner. Roman's fork paused. He set it down with careful precision. You think you're a prisoner? I think I haven't left this property in a month. I think I can't walk 10 feet without someone following me. I think you've turned this into a medical facility instead of a home. I'm protecting my investment. The words landed like a punch. Evelyn felt her face go hot, her hands clenching under the table. Your investment. That's what this is. No. This is a baby. Your baby. Our baby, whether you want to pretend otherwise or not. Something flickered across Roman's face, too fast to read, gone before she could name it. He picked up his wine, took a long drink, and when he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. The baby is important to me. That's why I'm being careful. You're being controlling. I'm being practical. You're being cruel. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Roman stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I have work to do, he said, and left before Evelyn could respond. She sat alone at the table, staring at her half-eaten dinner, and tried very hard not to cry. She was tired of crying, tired of feeling small and powerless and trapped, but she didn't know what else to do. Maria appeared in the doorway, quiet as always. Come on, dear, let's get you to bed. I'm not tired. Then we'll sit in your room and talk. Come on. Evelyn followed because there was nothing else to do. Maria helped her upstairs, settled her on the couch in her sweet sitting room, and brought tea that smelled like chamomile and something else Evelyn couldn't identify. "He's not trying to hurt you," Maria said after a while. "Could have fooled me." "He's scared." Evelyn laughed, sharp and bitter. "Roman Valenti doesn't get scared. Everyone gets scared. They just show it differently." Maria poured herself tea, settled into the opposite chair. His mother died when he was 8, complications from childbirth with his younger brother. The brother died too. Mr. Valenti, Roman's father, blamed her, said she'd been careless, hadn't followed instructions. Roman grew up thinking that pregnancy was dangerous, that one mistake could cost everything. The words settled over Evelyn like a weight. She'd known Roman's mother was dead, but she hadn't known how, hadn't known there'd been a brother who never made it. "That's not my fault," she said quietly. "No, but you're carrying his child, and he's terrified history will repeat itself. So he tries to control everything, make it safe, make it certain." Maria's smile was sad. "It's not right, but it's all he knows." Evelyn stared into her tea. "What am I supposed to do with that?" "Whatever you want, dear. But maybe understanding why he's like this makes it a little easier to bear." It didn't, not really. But later, lying in bed with her hand on her stomach where nothing showed yet, but everything was changing, Evelyn thought about an 8-year-old boy watching his mother die and decided that maybe Roman wasn't just cruel. Maybe he was damaged in ways that made cruelty feel like protection. It didn't excuse anything, but it explained some things. The weekly checkups continued. "Every Thursday at 2, doctor." Reeves would arrive with his equipment and his kind eyes and his professional demeanor that made Evelyn feel like a specimen. Roman always attended, standing against the wall with his arms crossed, listening to the doctor recite vitals and measurements like they were quarterly earnings. Week 8, the baby had a heartbeat. Evelyn heard it through the ultrasound monitor, fast and fluttering, impossibly fragile. She looked over at Roman to see if he felt it too, that sudden overwhelming reality of what they'd created, but his face was carefully blank. "Strong heartbeat," Dr. Reeves said. "That's good." "And the risk factors?" Roman asked. "At this stage, still elevated. The next month is critical. If we can get to 12 weeks without complications, we'll be in much better shape." Roman nodded. "What else should we be doing?" "Continue current protocols. No stress, adequate rest, proper nutrition. Mrs. Valenti seems to be tolerating everything well." They talked about her like she wasn't there. Evelyn tuned them out, staring at the ultrasound image where that tiny heartbeat pulsed. Her baby. Whatever else was true, whatever this marriage was or wasn't, that was real. After the doctor left, Roman found her in the library. She'd started spending more time there despite the locked sections, reading everything she could get her hands on just to have something to do. "You okay?" he asked. Evelyn looked up, surprised. He almost never checked on her outside of scheduled interactions. "Fine." The heartbeat was strong. "I heard." He stood there awkwardly, like he didn't know what to do with himself. Then, "Do you need anything?" The question was so unexpected that Evelyn didn't know how to answer. Did she need anything? She needed freedom. She needed choices. She needed to feel like a person instead of an incubator. But those weren't things Roman could give her. "No," she said. "I'm fine." He nodded and left. Evelyn went back to her book and tried not to think about the fact that hearing their baby's heartbeat together should have been a moment they shared, not something that happened in separate silences. Week 10, morning sickness hit like a freight train. Evelyn spent 3 days barely able to keep water down, and Maria hovered like a worried hen while Dr. Reeves prescribed anti-nausea medication and bland foods and more rest. Roman appeared in her suite on the 3rd day, still in his suit from work, looking uncomfortable and out of place. "Maria says you're not eating." Evelyn was curled on her bathroom floor, too exhausted to move. "I'm trying." "Dr. Reeves says—" "I don't care what Dr. Reeves says. I'm doing my best." He crouched beside her, and for the first time since their wedding night, Roman touched her without clinical detachment. His hand settled on her shoulder, warm and solid. "What can I do?" he asked. The question was so simple and so impossible that Evelyn almost laughed. Unless you can take over being pregnant, nothing. There has to be something. There isn't. This is just how it works. He stayed there for a moment, hand still on her shoulder, and Evelyn felt something shift. Not much, but something. Like maybe beneath all the control and distance, there was a person who actually gave a damn whether she was suffering. "I'll have Maria bring ginger tea," he said finally. "My mother used to swear by it." It was the first time he'd mentioned his mother voluntarily. Evelyn looked up at him, saw something raw in his expression before he shuddered it away. "Okay," she said. "Thank you." He nodded and left, and 10 minutes later Maria appeared with tea that actually helped. Evelyn sipped it slowly, tasting ginger and honey, and something that felt almost like care. The sickness passed eventually, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion that made even reading feel like too much effort. Evelyn slept more than she'd ever slept in her life, and when she was awake, she felt like she was moving through water. "It's normal," Dr. Reeves assured her. "First trimester fatigue. It should ease up in a few weeks." It did, slowly. By week 12, Evelyn felt almost human again. The baby was the size of a plum now, and her body was starting to change in small ways. Her jeans didn't quite fit right. Her breasts were tender. She couldn't stomach coffee anymore, even though she'd been allowed 1 cup a day. Roman noticed. "You're showing," he said at dinner one Friday. Evelyn looked down. She'd changed into looser clothes, but yeah, there was a small swell where there hadn't been before. "Little bit. We should schedule a shopping trip. You'll need new clothes." "I can order online." "It would be good for you to get out of the house." That made her look up. In 3 months, Roman had never once suggested she leave the property. "Are you serious? Dr. Reeves says gentle activity is fine now that you're past the first trimester, and you've been complaining about feeling trapped." He said it like it was a logical conclusion, not a concession. "Maria can go with you. And security. Of course, security. It's not negotiable." "I didn't think it was." But despite the armed guards and the restrictions, the idea of leaving, of seeing something other than these walls, made Evelyn feel lighter than she had in months. They went the following week. Maria, Evelyn, and 2 security guards who tried very hard to look like they weren't carrying guns. The shops Maria took her to were the kind where they served champagne and everything cost more than Evelyn's childhood clothing budget for a year, but she didn't care. She was outside, she was moving, she was somewhere that wasn't the mansion. "This one," Maria said, holding up a dress. "With your coloring, it'll be beautiful." Evelyn tried it on, soft blue fabric that draped over her changing body without clinging, and for the first time in months she looked in a mirror and didn't see a prisoner. She saw a young woman, pregnant, yes, but also alive. Still here, still herself. "We'll take it," Maria told the saleswoman, "and the green one, and the gray." They bought 6 dresses, new jeans with elastic waistbands, soft sweaters that wouldn't irritate her sensitive skin. On the way home, they stopped for lunch at a cafe, and Evelyn ate pasta and salad while Maria told stories about raising her own children, back before she came to work for the Valentis. "Do you miss it?" Evelyn asked. "Your family?" "Every day. But my kids are grown now, have families of their own. And this job pays well enough to help with their mortgages, college funds." Maria smiled. "Besides, someone needs to look after you and Mr. Valenti. We're not children." "No, but you're both young people trying to figure out how to live with choices you didn't really want to make. That's harder than being a child." The words stayed with Evelyn on the drive home. Choices she didn't want to make. That described her entire life, didn't it? Marrying Roman. Getting pregnant. Living in this house under his rules. But Maria was right. Roman was trapped too, just in different ways. He was waiting when they got back, standing in the foyer like he'd been watching for the car. "How was it?" he asked. "Fine. Good." Evelyn held up her shopping bags. "Maria has excellent taste." "She usually does." He looked at Maria. "Thank you for going with her." "Of course, Mr. Valenti." After Maria left, Roman turned to Evelyn. "I need to go out of town next week. Business in Chicago. I'll be gone 3 days." "Okay." "Dr. Reeves will still do your checkup Thursday, and security will remain in place." I assumed. He nodded, started to turn away, then stopped. "If you need anything while I'm gone, call me. Maria has my direct number." It was the closest he'd come to expressing actual concern for her well-being. Evelyn didn't know what to do with it. "I'll be fine," she said. "I know, but call anyway, if you need to." He left for Chicago on Monday. The house felt different without him, quieter, but also less tense. Evelyn spent the first day enjoying the absence of his watchful presence, the freedom to move through rooms without feeling monitored. By the second day, she felt restless. She'd gotten used to their Friday dinners, to the strange rhythm they'd developed. Without Roman there, the routine felt broken. Thursday's checkup went smoothly. Week 14 now, the baby measuring right on track. Doctor. Reeves let her hear the heartbeat again, still fast, still strong, and for the first time Evelyn felt it kick. Just a flutter, barely there, but unmistakable. "Did you feel that?" she asked the doctor. "Not yet, but you will more and more now. Your baby's getting active." That night, alone in her suite, Evelyn lay with her hand on her stomach and waited for it to happen again. When it did, that tiny butterfly movement, she started crying and couldn't stop. Happy tears, sad tears, confused tears, all mixed together. She was going to be a mother. This was real. This was happening. She called Roman without thinking about it. He answered on the second ring. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Nothing's wrong. The baby kicked today. During the checkup, I felt it." Silence on the other end, then, "That's good. That's normal, right?" "Yeah, Dr. Reeves said it's normal. It felt real, for the first time." More silence. Evelyn almost hung up, embarrassed that she'd called him for something so small. "I'm glad you told me," Roman said finally. "Thank you." "You're welcome. I'll be home tomorrow evening. We can talk about it more then." He hung up before she could respond, but Evelyn didn't mind. For the first time since this whole thing started, they'd had a conversation that felt almost normal. Almost like two people having a baby together instead of two parties fulfilling a contract. Roman came home late Friday, missed dinner, but found Evelyn in the library afterward. "Sorry I missed dinner," he said. "The flight was delayed." "It's okay." He sat in the chair across from her, still in his travel clothes, looking tired in a way she'd never seen before. "Tell me about the kick." So she did. Described the fluttering sensation, the way it had caught her off guard, how strange and wonderful and terrifying it felt all at once. Roman listened without interrupting, and when she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "My mother used to say that was her favorite part," he said, feeling us move. "She said it made everything real. Maria told me about her. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt." He looked at her then, really looked, and Evelyn saw something in his expression that looked almost like gratitude. "No, it doesn't." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Roman stood, offered his hand. "Come with me. I want to show you something." Evelyn followed him upstairs, past her suite, past his, to a wing of the house she'd never been in before. He unlocked a door, one of the ones that had always been closed, and led her into a room that took her breath away. It was a nursery. Not finished, but clearly in progress. Pale yellow walls, hardwood floors, a window overlooking the grounds. There was a crib already assembled in one corner, a changing table against another wall, boxes of supplies stacked neatly. "When did you do this?" Evelyn asked. "I've been working on it the past month. Wanted to have it ready." "It's beautiful." "It's not done. I didn't know what colors you'd want or how you wanted it decorated. I thought we could decide together." The offer was so unexpected, so far outside the carefully controlled parameters of their relationship, that Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes again. "You want my input? It's your baby too." The words were simple, but they meant everything. Evelyn walked around the room, trailing her fingers over furniture and imagining what it would look like finished. A baby in that crib. A life starting here, in this room, in this house, that was slowly starting to feel less like a prison. "Yellow is good," she said. "We could do white furniture, maybe some gray accents. Nothing too dark. I'll have the decorator come next week. You can work with her directly." "Really? Really?" Roman leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "I know I've been difficult, controlling. I'm trying to do better." "Why?" "Because Maria's right. You're not just carrying my baby. You're my wife, and I've been treating you like you're neither." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know how to do this, the marriage part, the partnership part, but I'm trying." Evelyn wanted to believe him, wanted to think that maybe, finally, they were turning a corner, But she'd been disappointed too many times to trust easily. "Trying is good," she said carefully. "But I need more than trying. I need you to actually let me in. Stop treating me like something fragile that might break if you get too close." "What if you do break?" "Then I break. But at least I'll have lived first." Roman nodded slowly, like he was processing something difficult. Then he pushed off the doorframe, crossed the room to where she stood. "Okay," he said. "No more locked doors, no more secrets. You want in? You're in. Even the dangerous parts? Especially those." It felt like a promise. Or maybe a threat. With Roman, it was hard to tell the difference. But standing there in the unfinished nursery with his hand extended and something almost like hope in his eyes, Evelyn decided to take the risk. She took his hand. The decorator arrived Tuesday morning with fabric swatches and paint samples and enough enthusiasm to power a small city. Her name was Patricia. She was probably 50, and she treated the nursery like it was the Sistine Chapel. "We want it warm but not overwhelming," she said, spreading samples across the floor. "Gender-neutral works beautifully with yellows and grays. We can add pops of color with artwork, maybe some nature themes. Animals are always lovely." Evelyn knelt beside her, running her fingers over soft cottons and linens. For the first time since moving into this house, someone was asking her opinion about something that mattered. "I like this one," she said, holding up a fabric with tiny elephants printed on cream-colored background. "Is it too childish?" "It's a nursery, dear. Childish is the point." Patricia smiled. "And elephants are perfect. They represent wisdom, family bonds, protection." They spent 3 hours going through options. Roman appeared halfway through, still in his work clothes, and instead of just observing like Evelyn expected, he sat down and actually participated. "Not that green," he said when Patricia held up a sample. "Too dark." "What about this sage?" Patricia countered. "Better. What do you think?" He directed the question to Evelyn. "I like it. With the gray and cream, it'll be soft." They settled on a palette. Butter yellow walls, white furniture, sage green and gray accents, warm wood floors. Patricia took notes, promised samples would arrive by Friday, and left with the kind of energy that made Evelyn tired just watching. "She's intense," Evelyn said when the door closed behind her. "She's the best. Designed half the houses in Westchester." Roman loosened his tie, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him in weeks. "You did good. The room's going to look great." "We did good. You picked the sage." "Yeah, well, teamwork." He said it like the word was foreign, which maybe it was. That Friday at dinner, Roman brought up something Evelyn hadn't expected. "There's a charity gala next month. My family sponsors it every year. I need you there." Evelyn set down her fork. "What kind of gala?" "The kind where people with too much money pretend to care about causes while networking and making deals." He said it with the dry honesty she'd come to appreciate. "You'll need a dress, something formal. Patricia can help if you want." "Will I be showing by then?" "Probably. We'll work around it." "And what exactly am I supposed to do at this thing?" "Smile. Make small talk. Look like we're a happy couple." Roman took a drink of his wine. "People will ask about the baby. We need a unified story." "Which is what?" "That we're thrilled, that everything's going well, that we're building a life together." "So we lie. We present the version of the truth that's useful." He met her eyes. "This is part of the deal, Evelyn. The public face. Can you handle it?" She wanted to say no. Wanted to tell him that parading around pretending to be something they weren't sounded like a special kind of torture, but she'd agreed to attend social functions. It was in the contract she'd negotiated. "I can handle it," she said, "but I want to know what I'm walking into. Who'll be there, what they know about us, what topics are off limits." "Fair enough. I'll brief you before we go." The gala became something to prepare for, a deadline that gave structure to the following weeks. Patricia helped Evelyn find a dress, midnight blue silk that draped beautifully over her growing stomach without hiding it. Maria taught her how to navigate formal place settings and remember names and deflect personal questions with grace. Roman drilled her on key players in his world, the politicians he did business with, the families he was allied with, the ones he was actively at war with, but had to be civil to in public. It was like learning a language where every word had 3 meanings, and saying the wrong thing could get someone killed. "Antonio Marchetti will be there," Roman said one evening, showing her a photo. Older man, silver hair, expensive suit, eyes like a shark. He runs the Eastern Territories. We have an understanding, but he's been pushing boundaries lately. If he approaches you, be polite, but don't engage beyond pleasantries. What kind of boundaries? The kind that involve territory I've already claimed. Roman's jaw tightened. He's testing me, seeing if the marriage made me soft. Did it? No, but he doesn't know that yet. Evelyn studied the photo. What happens if he pushes too hard? Then I push back harder. The casual way he said it, like violence was just another business strategy, reminded Evelyn exactly what world she'd married into. Roman wasn't just wealthy, he was dangerous. And the people at this gala would be too. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you careful. Roman took the photo back. But you'll be fine. Just stay close to me, don't wander off, and trust your instincts. Someone feels wrong, you tell me. Week 18, the baby started kicking regularly. Strong enough now that Roman could feel it if he put his hand on her stomach, which he did one night after dinner with an expression that looked almost vulnerable. That's weird, he said when the baby kicked against his palm. Weird good or weird bad? Just weird, like there's actually a person in there. There is actually a person in there. I know, it's just different when you can feel it. He kept his hand there, waiting for another kick. When it came, he smiled, small and brief, but real. Strong. She takes after her father. Roman's eyes snapped to hers. She? Or he? I don't know yet. Won't know for another month. Evelyn put her hand over his. Do you care? Which it is. Healthy, that's all I care about. But the way he said she afterward, testing the word out, made Evelyn think he'd already decided in his head what they were having. The nursery was coming together beautifully. Painters finished the walls, Patricia installed curtains and brought in furniture, and slowly the empty room became something real. A white crib with a mobile of elephants and stars, a rocking chair by the window, a bookshelf already filling with children's books Roman kept appearing with, like he couldn't help himself. Where are you getting these? Evelyn asked, finding 3 new board books on the changing table. Bookstore in the city. They have a whole section. You went to a bookstore? You? I can read, Evelyn. I know, She picked up one of the books, something about a bear and the moon. You hate shopping. I don't hate it, I just don't usually have a reason. He took the book from her, opened it to show watercolor illustrations. This one's good. I read it in the store. Kids seem to like it. The image of Roman Valenti standing in a children's bookstore reading picture books was so incongruous that Evelyn almost laughed. But there was something sweet about it too, something that made her chest feel tight. Thank you, she said, for doing this, for trying. I'm not just trying, I'm succeeding. He said it with the same confidence he brought to business deals, and maybe that was the problem. Roman didn't know how to do anything halfway. The night of the gala arrived faster than Evelyn wanted. She spent hours getting ready with Maria's help, wrestling her hair into something elegant, applying makeup that made her look older and more polished than she felt. The dress fit perfectly, showing her pregnancy without apologizing for it. Roman knocked at 7 sharp, already in his tuxedo. He stopped in the doorway when he saw her. You look good, he said. Just good? Beautiful. You look beautiful. He said it like he was admitting something difficult. Ready? No, but let's go anyway. The gala was at a hotel in Manhattan, the kind of place where the chandelier in the lobby probably cost more than most houses. Roman kept his hand on her lower back as they entered, a possessive gesture that looked affectionate but felt more like a leash. The ballroom was packed with exactly the kind of people Roman had described, wealthy, polished, and watching each other like predators at a watering hole. Evelyn recognized some faces from the wedding. Most were strangers who looked at her with barely concealed curiosity. Roman, a woman purred, appearing at his elbow in a dress that cost more than a car. You brought your bride, how lovely. Catherine, Roman's voice was polite and cold. Evelyn, this is Catherine D'Angelo. Her husband runs shipping on the West Coast. Congratulations on the baby, Catherine said, eyes dropping to Evelyn's stomach with the kind of assessment that felt invasive. How far along? 18 weeks. And feeling well? Very well, thank you. Good, good. Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. Pregnancy suits you. You're glowing. It was the kind of compliment that felt like an insult. Evelyn smiled anyway. That's kind of you to say. Catherine drifted away, and Roman leaned close to murmur. First test passed. She's a viper, but mostly harmless. Mostly? Her husband's an idiot who likes to gamble more than he should. She's the one actually running things, and she's always looking for advantages. Don't tell her anything real. The evening continued like that. A parade of introductions. Each one a small performance where Evelyn had to smile and deflect and pretend she belonged in this world. Roman stayed close, his hand never leaving her back, steering her through conversations with the kind of subtle control that looked protective but felt suffocating. Antonio Marchetti appeared an hour in. He was exactly like his photo, polished, dangerous, smiling like he'd already won whatever game they were playing. Roman, congratulations are in order, I hear. His eyes slid to Evelyn. And this must be the lovely bride, Antonio Marchetti. A pleasure. He took her hand, kissed it in a gesture that should have been courtly but felt predatory. Evelyn resisted the urge to pull away. Nice to meet you, she said. The pleasure is mine. Roman's been keeping you hidden away. We were beginning to think you were a myth. Just private, Roman said, edge in his voice now. Evelyn's health comes first. Of course, though I hope that means you're not neglecting other responsibilities. Marchetti's smile sharpened. The Eastern Expansion Project, for instance. I haven't heard back on my proposal. Because the answer's no. Perhaps we could discuss the answer's no, Antonio. Enjoy the gala. Roman guided Evelyn away before Marchetti could respond, his hand tight on her back. When they were far enough away, he exhaled slowly. That was him testing me, he said, seeing if having a pregnant wife makes me easier to manipulate. What project is he talking about? Something that would give him access to territory I control. He's been circling it for months. Roman's jaw tightened. He's going to push harder now. Think I'm distracted. Are you? He looked at her then, something complicated in his expression. Yeah, but not the way he thinks. They made it through dinner without incident. Evelyn sat beside Roman at a table full of people who spoke in careful code about things she only half understood. Business deals that weren't quite legal, political favors, territory disputes dressed up as real estate investments. She was exhausted by the time dessert arrived, her back aching and her feet screaming in heels she wasn't used to wearing anymore. Roman noticed. We can leave after the speeches, he said quietly. I'm fine. You're in pain, I can tell. It's just my back. The baby's getting heavy. His hand moved to her lower back, pressing gently where it hurt most. The relief was immediate. Evelyn leaned into the touch without thinking, and Roman kept his hand there through the rest of dinner, rubbing small circles that probably looked affectionate to anyone watching. Maybe that was the point. Maybe it was all performance. But it felt real. The speeches started after dessert, charity organizers thanking donors, a local politician saying words that meant nothing, Roman himself taking the microphone to talk about his family's commitment to the community. He was good at it, smooth and confident, saying exactly what people wanted to hear without promising anything concrete. When he returned to the table, Evelyn squeezed his hand. Good speech. Liar. It was boring as hell. It was appropriately boring for the occasion. He almost smiled. Almost. They left shortly after, Roman guiding her out through a side exit, where a car was already waiting. The drive home was quiet, both of them too tired to talk. Evelyn kicked off her heels as soon as they were in the car, groaning with relief. Never again, she muttered. You did well tonight. Better than I expected. Should I be insulted by that? It was a compliment. Those people are sharks. You held your own. Evelyn leaned her head against the window, watching the city blur past. Marchetti scared me. Good instincts. He's dangerous. More dangerous than you? Roman was quiet for a moment. Different kind of dangerous. I have lines I won't cross. He doesn't. What lines? The ones that matter. It wasn't really an answer, but Evelyn was too tired to push. When they got home, she went straight to her suite and changed into comfortable clothes. She was about to get into bed when someone knocked. Roman stood in the doorway, out of his tuxedo and into casual clothes that made him look younger, less intimidating. "You're back," he said. "It's still hurting." "How do you know?" "You're moving like it is. Come here." He led her to the couch, had her sit, and before she could protest, his hands were on her back, working the knots out of her muscles, with surprising gentleness. Evelyn bit back a groan. "Where'd you learn to do this?" she asked. "Physical therapist after I got shot a few years ago. Taught me pressure points." His thumbs dug into a particularly tight spot, and Evelyn hissed, "Sorry." "Better?" "Yeah." "What do you mean you got shot?" "Exactly what it sounds like. Shoulder. Healed fine." He said it so casually, like getting shot was just an occupational hazard, which in his world it probably was. Evelyn tried to process that, tried to reconcile this man giving her a back rub with someone who'd survived a gunshot wound. "Does it still hurt?" she asked. "Sometimes. When it rains." His hands moved lower, working the muscles along her spine. "You did good tonight. Meant to say that earlier." "You did say it. I meant to say it better. You were perfect. Exactly what I needed." The words should have felt transactional, should have reminded her that this was all performance, that she was playing a role. But the way Roman said it, quiet and honest, made it feel like more. "Thank you," she said. He finished the massage in silence, then stood. "Get some sleep. You're exhausted." "Roman?" "Yeah?" "Thanks. For tonight. For staying close. I know it was work, but it wasn't just work." He said it quickly, like the admission cost him something. "Get some rest." He left before she could respond, and Evelyn sat there alone trying to figure out what had just happened. They'd gone to a gala. They'd played their parts. But somewhere in there, something had shifted. She could feel it, but couldn't name it. The next morning, Maria brought breakfast with news. "Mr. Valenti left early for the office, but wanted me to tell you he'll be home for dinner. And this came for you." She handed Evelyn a small box. Inside was a bracelet, delicate gold chain with a tiny elephant charm. The note was brief. "Saw this yesterday. Thought you'd like it." Evelyn turned the bracelet over in her hands, something warm spreading through her chest. He'd been thinking about her, had seen something and bought it just because. It was such a small thing, but it felt enormous. She put it on and didn't take it off. Week 19, they found out the sex of the baby. Evelyn hadn't planned to find out, had thought maybe the surprise would be nice. But Roman asked her to reconsider during one of their dinners. "I want to know," he said. "I want to be able to picture it. Her, him, whatever." "You think it's a girl?" "I don't think anything. I just want to know." So at the next appointment, with Roman standing beside her and Dr. Reeves moving the ultrasound wand across her stomach, they found out. "Congratulations," Dr. Reeves said. "You're having a daughter." Roman's hand found Evelyn's and squeezed, hard. When she looked over at him, his eyes were locked on the monitor where their daughter, was moving and kicking and very much real. "A girl," he said quietly. "Yeah." "We're having a daughter." "We are." On the drive home, Roman was quiet in a way that felt different from his usual silence, thoughtful instead of distant. When they pulled through the gates, he didn't get out immediately. "My father wanted boys," he said. "Thought girls were liabilities, weaknesses someone could exploit. And you?" "I think anyone who sees a daughter as a weakness is an idiot." He looked at her. "She's going to be strong, like you." "I'm not that strong." "You survived me. That counts." It was maybe the closest Roman had come to acknowledging that their marriage had been hard, that he'd made it hard. Evelyn didn't know what to say to that. "She's going to need a name," she said instead. "Yeah, we should figure that out." They spent the next week throwing ideas back and forth. Roman kept suggesting Italian names that Evelyn couldn't pronounce. Evelyn suggested classic names Roman called boring. They argued about it the way other couples probably argued about paint colors or vacation destinations. It felt almost normal. "What about Elena?" Roman suggested at dinner Friday. "Too close to Evelyn." "Sophia?" "Every third girl is named Sophia." "Isabella?" "Better, but still Italian. She's half Italian. She's also half not." Evelyn took a bite of her pasta. "What about Grace?" "Too simple." "Charlotte?" "Too British." They went around like that for an hour, getting nowhere, until Maria appeared with dessert and settled the whole thing. "What about Juliet?" she said. "Classic, but not common. Works in both English and Italian, and it means youthful, which seems appropriate." Roman and Evelyn looked at each other. "Juliet," Evelyn said, testing it. "Juliet Valenti." "I like it," Roman said. "What do you think?" "I think Maria just solved our argument. Juliet it is, then." Having a name made it more real somehow, made Juliet feel less like a concept and more like a person they'd soon meet. Roman started calling Evelyn's stomach Juliet, which should have been weird but was actually kind of sweet. "How's Juliet today?" he'd ask. "Active. She kicked me awake at 3 a.m. That's my girl. Already causing trouble." He was smiling more now. Small smiles. Rare, but they were there. And he touched Evelyn more, hand on her back, helping her up from chairs, putting his palm on her stomach to feel Juliet kick. Nothing romantic, but not entirely clinical either. They were building something. Not love, maybe. Not yet. But something that felt like it could become a foundation. Then Marchetti showed up at the house uninvited on a Tuesday afternoon, and everything went to hell. Evelyn was in the library when she heard raised voices from Roman's study. She shouldn't have gone to investigate, should have stayed where she was and pretended not to notice. But curiosity and something like concern pulled her down the hallway. "Disrespectful, Antonio. Coming to my home without an invitation. I was in the neighborhood, thought we could talk privately. We have nothing to talk about." "I disagree. The Eastern Territory is worth millions. My proposal gives you a cut without the overhead. It's smart business. It's encroachment dressed up as partnership." Evelyn stopped outside the study door, heart pounding. Through the crack, she could see Roman behind his desk, Marchetti standing in front of it with 2 men flanking him. Security, probably. Or worse. "I'm offering you a fortune, Roman. All you have to do is step aside. And if I don't, then we have a problem." The threat was clear even to Evelyn. Roman's posture changed, subtle but unmistakable. Predator recognizing another predator. "Get out of my house," Roman said. Voice very quiet now. Very dangerous. "Be reasonable. I said get out." Marchetti smiled, slow and cold. "You're making a mistake. That pretty wife of yours, that baby on the way, makes a man vulnerable. Makes him think twice about starting wars he can't finish." Roman moved so fast Evelyn barely saw it. One second he was behind the desk, the next he had Marchetti by the throat, slammed against the wall hard enough to rattle the windows. "You threaten my family again," Roman said, "and I will bury you so deep no one will ever find the pieces. Understand?" Marchetti's men stepped forward, but Roman's security appeared from somewhere, guns drawn, and suddenly the study was full of armed men and violence waiting to happen. "Understand?" Roman repeated. "Yes," Marchetti choked out. Roman released him, stepped back. "Get out. All of you. If you set foot on my property again, I'll consider it an act of war." Marchetti straightened his jacket, nodded to his men. On his way out, he saw Evelyn in the hallway. His smile widened. "Mrs. Valenti, lovely to see you again." Then he was gone, his men following, and Evelyn stood frozen in the hallway trying to process what she'd just witnessed. Roman appeared in the study doorway, saw her, and his expression went carefully blank. "How much did you hear?" "Enough. He threatened us, threatened Juliet." "He won't do anything. It was posturing." "You don't know that." Roman crossed to her, hands settling on her shoulders. "Yes, I do. Marchetti talks big, but he's smart enough to know that actually following through would start a war he can't win. This was him testing boundaries. And if he tests them again, then I push back harder. But you're safe, Evelyn. I promise." She wanted to believe him, wanted to think that his confidence wasn't just arrogance, that he actually could protect them from men like Marchetti. But standing there with adrenaline still spiking through her system and Juliet kicking inside her like she could sense her mother's fear, Evelyn realized something terrifying. She cared about Roman, not just about the life they were building or the daughter they were having, but about him. And in his world, caring about someone made them a target. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know, but I've got you. Both of you. Nothing's going to happen." He pulled her into a hug, the first real embrace they'd shared since their wedding, and Evelyn let herself lean into it. let herself take comfort from this man who was dangerous and damaged and trying so hard to be something other than what his father made him. "Promise me," she said against his chest. "I promise." She didn't know if he could keep that promise. Didn't know if anyone could, in his world. But right now, standing in his arms with their daughter moving between them, Evelyn chose to believe him anyway. Security doubled after Marchetti's visit. Roman didn't ask, just informed Evelyn over breakfast that there would be additional guards on the property and new protocols she needed to follow. "I can't leave the house without 2 guards minimum," he said. "Neither can you. No exceptions." "For how long?" "Until Marchetti backs off or I deal with him permanently." The way he said permanently made Evelyn's stomach twist. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm handling it. You don't need to worry about the details." "You just told me no more secrets." Roman set down his coffee, jaw tight. "This isn't a secret. It's me protecting you from parts of my business you don't need to be involved in." "Except I am involved. He threatened our daughter." "Which is why I'm handling it." They stared at each other across the breakfast table, and Evelyn felt the fragile trust they'd been building start to crack. Roman was shutting her out again, making decisions without her, treating her like she was too delicate to handle reality. "I'm not a child," she said. "I never said you were." "Then stop treating me like one. If we're in danger, I deserve to know what's happening." Roman stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "What's happening is I have a rival who's getting bold, and I need to remind him why that's a bad idea. That's all you need to know." He left before Evelyn could respond, and she sat there alone, feeling the weight of his world pressing down on her. This was what she'd signed up for, wasn't it? Marrying a man whose business involved threats and violence and decisions she'd never be allowed to be part of. Maria found her still sitting there 20 minutes later. "He's scared," Maria said gently. "He has a funny way of showing it." Men like Mr. Valenti don't know how to be scared without being angry. It's safer. Maria poured fresh coffee. When he was young and his mother died, his father beat him for crying, said tears were weakness. Roman learned to turn fear into something else. That's not an excuse. No, but it's an explanation. Maria squeezed her shoulder. Give him time. He's learning. But time felt like a luxury they didn't have. Over the next week, Roman disappeared into his work with the kind of intensity that felt like obsession. He left early, came home late, missed their Friday dinner without explanation. When Evelyn did see him, he was on the phone speaking rapid Italian with people whose names she didn't recognize. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Guards patrolled the grounds at all hours. Security cameras multiplied. Even Maria seemed tense, jumping at unexpected sounds. Week 21, Evelyn woke at 3 a.m. to voices downstairs, low and urgent. She got up despite knowing she probably shouldn't, pulled on a robe, and crept to the top of the stairs. Roman stood in the foyer with 3 men she'd never seen before. They were dressed in dark clothes, carrying bags that clinked when they moved. One of them was bleeding from his arm, blood dripping onto the marble floor. "Get him cleaned up," Roman was saying, "and find out who talked. Someone gave them our location." "Could have been a dozen people," one of the men said. "Then narrow it down. I want names by morning." They dispersed, and Roman stood alone in the foyer looking exhausted and dangerous. That's when he saw Evelyn on the stairs. "Go back to bed," he said. "What happened?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "Roman, please, don't do this." He climbed the stairs slowly, and when he reached her, Evelyn could see the strain in his face. Whatever had happened tonight, it had cost him something. "Marchetti made a move," Roman said quietly. "Hit one of my operations downtown. We pushed back, that's all." "Is it over?" "No, it's just starting." The admission hung between them. Evelyn felt Juliet kick, hard, like she could sense the tension. "What do we do?" Evelyn asked. "We keep you safe. That's priority 1. Roman touched her stomach briefly. "Both of you." "And you?" "I'll be fine. This isn't my first war." But the way he said it, resigned, almost sad, made Evelyn wonder how many wars one person could survive before they stopped being fine at all. The next morning, Roman had a plan. He explained it over breakfast with the kind of clinical detachment he used when discussing business deals. "There's a safe house upstate, secure location, full staff, better protection than here. I want you there until this is resolved. Evelyn's fork stilled. You want me to leave? I want you safe. This is my home. This is a target right now. The safe house isn't. And what about you? I'll be here, dealing with Marchetti. Evelyn set down her fork, anger rising in her chest. So you ship me off somewhere while you do what? Start a war? Get yourself killed? I'm not going to get killed. You can't promise that. I can promise that sending you away is the smartest move right now. Roman leaned forward. Marchetti knows you're here, knows you're pregnant. As long as you're in this house, you're leverage he can use against me. So I'm still just a chess piece. You're my wife, the mother of my child. That makes you the most important thing I have to protect. The word should have felt good, should have felt like progress. But all Evelyn heard was that she was important because of what she represented, not who she was. I'm not going, she said. Evelyn, I said no. You don't get to make this decision for me. Roman's expression hardened. Actually, I do. This is about safety, not feelings. Everything with you is about control. You don't want me safe. You want me manageable. That's not fair, isn't it? You shut me out of your business, make decisions without consulting me, and now you want to pack me off somewhere so I don't complicate your war. Evelyn stood, her chair scraping back. I'm not leaving. If there's danger, we face it together. That's what partners do. We're not partners, not in this. The words landed like a slap. Evelyn felt something inside her crack, that fragile hope she'd been building that maybe they could be something more than a transaction. Fine, she said. Then I guess we're back to being a contract. She left before he could respond, went upstairs to the nursery and stood in the middle of the room they'd built together, crying angry tears while Juliet kicked inside her. Maria found her there an hour later. He's trying to protect you, Maria said. He's trying to control me. There's a difference. With Roman, they're usually the same thing. Maria sat in the rocking chair, gestured for Evelyn to join her. His father used to say that love was weakness, that caring about someone gave your enemies ammunition. Roman spent his whole life trying to prove that wrong by not letting anyone close enough to matter. Then why marry me? Why have a baby? Because he needed the alliance. And because some part of him wants what his father said was impossible, a family that isn't built on fear. Maria's smile was sad. But wanting something and knowing how to have it are different things. So what do I do? You decide what you can live with. Because Roman won't change unless he has to. Men like him don't. Evelyn spent the rest of the day in the nursery, organizing things that didn't need organizing, trying to figure out what she could live with. By the time Roman got home that evening, she had an answer. She found him in his study, staring at documents she couldn't read. I'll go to the safe house, she said, but on one condition. Roman looked up. Which is? You tell me everything. What's happening with Marchetti? What your plan is? What the risks are? No more shutting me out. I'm part of this whether you like it or not. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, sit down. For the next hour, Roman explained his world in a way he never had before. The territories he controlled, the businesses both legitimate and less so, the complex web of alliances and rivalries that governed everything. Marchetti wanted the Eastern Territory because it included 3 ports critical for shipping. Roman controlled those ports, and giving them up would cost him millions and make him look weak. So what's your plan? Evelyn asked. Cut off his funding. I've been systematically dismantling his operations for the past week. His drug routes, his gambling dens, his legitimate businesses that launder money. By the time I'm done, he won't be able to afford a war. And if that doesn't work, then I go more direct. But I'd rather avoid that if possible. Direct means bodies, and bodies mean attention we don't need. The casual way he discussed it, violence as a business strategy, should have horrified Evelyn. And part of it did. But another part understood that this was Roman's reality. This was how he survived. When do I leave? She asked. Tomorrow morning. Maria's going with you. So is my best security team. And you? I'll visit when I can, but I need to stay here. Need to be visible so Marchetti knows I'm not hiding. Evelyn nodded. How long? Few weeks, maybe a month. Depends how fast he breaks. She left the next morning before sunrise. The safe house was 3 hours north, deep in the mountains where cell service was spotty, and the nearest town was 20 miles away. It was beautiful in a remote, isolated way. Modern cabin on 100 acres of woods, solar panels on the roof, a generator for backup power. The security team, 4 men who introduced themselves as Tony, Marcus, James, and Derek, did a sweep of the property while Maria helped Evelyn settle in. The house was nice, comfortable, but it felt like a prison all the same. Roman called that night. "You settled in okay?" he asked. "Yeah, it's nice here, quiet." "Good, that's good." Background noise on his end, voices, movement. "I can't talk long, just wanted to make sure you got there safely." "I'm fine." "How are things there?" "Progressing. Marchetti's hurting. Few more days and he'll come to the table." "And if he doesn't?" "Then we move to Plan B." He didn't say what Plan B was, and Evelyn didn't ask. They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important, and when they hung up, Evelyn felt more alone than she had in months. The days at the safe house blurred together. Evelyn read, walked the property with guards trailing her, video called with Patricia about nursery updates. Maria cooked and fussed and tried to keep her spirits up, but the isolation wore on her. Week 23, Juliet started moving constantly. Big rolls and kicks that Evelyn could see from the outside now. She sent Roman videos, her stomach moving like something from a sci-fi movie. Juliet's foot or hand pressing against her skin. He called immediately. "Is that normal?" he asked. "Dr. Reeves says it's fine. She's just active." "She's strong." "Like her father. Like her mother." Roman's voice softened. "I miss you." The admission caught Evelyn off guard. "You do?" "Yeah, house is too quiet without you." A pause. "I know I'm not good at this, the emotional part, but I'm trying." I know you are." "Few more days. Marchetti's almost done. Then you can come home." But few more days turned into a week, and then the call came that changed everything. Evelyn was in the kitchen with Maria when Tony appeared, phone pressed to his ear, expression grim. "Understood. We'll initiate lockdown protocols now." He hung up, looked at Evelyn. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me. Now." "What's happening?" "Marchetti's made a move. We're going to the panic room until we get the all clear." "Where's Roman?" "At the mansion. He's secure. But we're not taking chances." The panic room was in the basement. Reinforced steel walls, independent air supply, enough food and water for a week. It looked like something out of a bunker, and Evelyn's heart hammered as Tony sealed them inside. "How long do we stay here?" Maria asked. "Until Mr. Valenti or I get confirmation it's safe. Could be an hour, could be longer." It was 4 hours. 4 hours of sitting in artificial light while Evelyn's imagination ran wild. 4 hours of wondering if Roman was okay, if Marchetti had made his move against the mansion, if the war had finally turned hot. When Tony's phone finally rang, Evelyn nearly jumped out of her skin. Yeah, she's fine. Okay, putting you on now." He handed the phone to Evelyn. "Mr. Valenti?" "Are you okay?" Roman's voice was rough, strained. "I'm fine. What happened?" "Marchetti hit the mansion. Full assault. 20 men, heavy weapons. They're all dead or in custody." A pause. "I'm fine. Not hurt. But the house is a mess and I need you to stay there until we're sure there aren't more coming." "How bad is it?" "Bad enough. But we won. Marchetti's broken. His own people are turning on him. It's over, Evelyn. Really over." She should have felt relief, should have been grateful that the threat was neutralized, that they were safe. But all she could feel was the sick realization of how close she'd come to losing him. "I want to come home," she said. "Not yet. Give it another day. Let me clean this up first." But Evelyn was done waiting, done being protected from reality. "I'm coming home tomorrow, with or without your permission." "Evelyn?" "I mean it, Roman. I'm your wife. When someone attacks our home, I don't hide in the mountains. I come back." Silence on the other end. Then, "Okay, tomorrow. I'll send a car." That night, Evelyn barely slept. She kept thinking about Roman in that mansion, fighting off 20 armed men, surviving something that should have killed him. Kept thinking about what would have happened if it had gone differently. The car arrived at dawn. A new SUV with bulletproof glass and a driver who looked like he could bench press a truck. Tony and Marcus came with her. Maria, too. The drive back felt longer than it had leaving, every mile stretching out while Evelyn's anxiety built. When they finally pulled through the gates, Evelyn saw the damage. Bullet holes in the stone facade, windows blown out. Part of the east wing looked like it had caught fire. Security teams were everywhere, cleaning up debris and patching holes while contractors assessed the structural damage. Roman was standing in the foyer when she walked in. He had a bandage on his left arm and a cut above his eyebrow, but he was alive. That was all that mattered. Evelyn crossed to him without thinking, and Roman pulled her into a hug that felt desperate. "You're okay," she said against his chest. "I'm okay. We're okay." His hand went to her stomach. "All of us." "What happened?" He pulled back, gestured to the destruction around them. They came in hard, breached the east entrance, hit the security office first to disable cameras. Would have worked, except I had backup systems they didn't know about. His jaw tightened. "They made it to the second floor before we stopped them. That's close to the nursery, yeah." Roman's expression went dark. "They knew exactly where to hit. Someone gave them detailed layouts." "Who?" "We're finding out. But it doesn't matter now. Marchetti's done. His organization is collapsing. His allies are abandoning him, and I've made it very clear what happens to people who threaten my family." Evelyn looked around at the damage, at the evidence of violence she'd been spared from seeing. "How many died?" 15 of his men. 2 of mine." Roman said it flatly, but she could hear the weight underneath. "Could have been worse. Could have been you. But it wasn't." He cupped her face. "I told you I'd keep you safe. I meant it." "You can't control everything, Roman. Sometimes bad things happen, no matter how careful you are." "I know, but I can sure as hell try." He kissed her forehead. "Come on, let's get you upstairs. You should rest." But Evelyn pulled back. "No, I want to see it, the nursery. I want to see what almost happened." "Evelyn, please." Roman hesitated, then nodded. He led her upstairs down the hallway she knew so well, to the nursery that had become a symbol of their fragile future. The door was riddled with bullet holes. The windows were blown out. Part of the ceiling had collapsed. But the worst part was seeing Juliet's crib, the one they'd picked out together, the one Roman had assembled himself, shredded by gunfire. Evelyn stood in the doorway, staring at the destruction, and felt something inside her shift. This was Roman's world. This was what he'd been trying to protect her from, and for the first time she understood why he'd been so desperate to keep her away. "We'll rebuild it," Roman said quietly. "Better security, reinforced walls. It'll be safer." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" Evelyn turned to look at him. "The point is that Juliet is going to grow up in a world where people try to kill her father, where our house gets attacked, where we need panic rooms and armed guards just to feel safe." "I know. I'm sorry." "Don't apologize. Just tell me it's worth it. Tell me that whatever you're building is worth all this." Roman was quiet for a long moment. Then he took her hand, led her away from the destroyed nursery to his study. From a safe behind his desk, he pulled out a folder. "This is what I've been working on," he said, handing it to her. "For the past year." Inside were documents, business plans, legal filings, a transition strategy from illegal operations to legitimate enterprises, real estate development, import-export businesses that didn't involve anything criminal, long-term plans that looked more like a corporate restructuring than a crime family's operations. "I'm getting out," Roman said. "Not tomorrow, not next month. But over the next 5 years, I'm transitioning everything legitimate, because I don't want Juliet growing up the way I did. I don't want her to think violence is normal." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it's dangerous. The transition, I mean. There are people in my organization who won't like it. People outside who'll see it as weakness." "What happened with Marchetti? That's going to happen again. Maybe worse. And I needed to know you were safe before I started making waves." Evelyn stared at the documents, at the evidence of a future she hadn't known Roman was planning. "This is real? You're serious about this?" "As serious as I've ever been about anything." He took her hand. "I can't change the past. Can't undo the things I've done, but I can build something different for our daughter, something better. That's worth fighting for." For the first time since walking into that destroyed nursery, Evelyn felt hope. Not the fragile, desperate kind she'd been clinging to, but something solid, Real. Okay, she said. Then we do it together. No more secrets, no more shutting me out. If you're building a new future, I'm part of it. Even knowing how dangerous it'll be? Especially knowing that. She put her hand on her stomach. Juliet deserves parents who don't hide from the hard parts, who face things together. Roman pulled her close, and Evelyn let herself lean into him. They stood like that in his study, surrounded by evidence of violence and plans for peace. And for the first time since their wedding day, Evelyn felt like they were actually married. Not the contract kind, the real kind, the kind worth fighting for. Rebuilding took longer than anyone expected. Not just the house, but everything the attack had damaged. The nursery needed to be completely reconstructed with reinforced walls and bulletproof glass that looked normal, but could stop anything short of military-grade weapons. The security system got overhauled from top to bottom. Roman brought in consultants who specialized in making homes both beautiful and fortress-like, which turned out to be an actual profession. Evelyn watched it all happen, while her body changed in ways that felt both miraculous and uncomfortable. Week 25 brought swollen ankles and back pain that never quite went away. Week 27 brought heartburn so bad she couldn't lie flat. Week 30 brought the realization that Juliet was running out of room and apparently decided to express her displeasure by kicking Evelyn's ribs at 3 a.m. "She's got your temper," Roman said one night, hand on Evelyn's stomach, feeling their daughter wage war against her internal organs. "She's got your stubbornness. Normal babies sleep at night." "Who says she's not sleeping? Maybe this is just how she sleeps." "Active." Evelyn groaned as Juliet landed a particularly solid kick. "Your daughter is going to be a kickboxer." "My daughter," Roman repeated and smiled. He'd been doing that more lately. Smiling, laughing, being something other than the cold, controlled man she'd married. "I like the sound of that." "Even at 3 a.m. when she's using my bladder as a soccer ball?" "Especially then." They'd moved into a guest suite while their bedroom was being repaired, and Roman had stopped pretending they needed separate rooms. He'd never actually said they were sharing a bed now, just started showing up at night and not leaving. Evelyn hadn't questioned it. Some things were better left unexamined. The transition Roman had showed her, the plan to go legitimate, was happening faster than she'd expected. He'd started selling off the criminal enterprises piece by piece, reinvesting the money into legal businesses, import-export companies, real estate development, a chain of restaurants that actually served food instead of laundering money. It was complicated and dangerous and exactly the kind of thing that could get him killed if he wasn't careful. But Roman was being careful. More than that, he was being smart. Instead of just walking away and creating a power vacuum, he was making deals, giving territory to allies in exchange for support during the transition, buying out rivals who might have caused problems, turning enemies into partners with the kind of business acumen that reminded Evelyn he hadn't built an empire by being stupid. "How much longer?" she asked one night at dinner. They'd started eating together every night now, not just Fridays. "Until what?" "Until you're completely out. Until we're just a normal family running normal businesses." Roman considered this. 2 years if everything goes smoothly. 5 if it doesn't. There are some operations I can't just shut down without causing wars. Those take time to transition. But it's really happening. It's really happening. He reached across the table, took her hand. "For Juliet. And for you. For you too. You deserve a life that isn't constantly under threat." "I don't know if I deserve anything, but I'm taking it anyway." It was maybe the most honest thing he'd ever said to her. Roman didn't believe he deserved peace or happiness or a normal life, but he was fighting for it regardless. Not because he thought he'd earned it, but because he refused to let his daughter grow up in the same violence that had shaped him. That took courage, the kind Evelyn was learning to recognize and respect. Week 32, doctor. Reeves started doing twice-weekly checkups. Juliet was measuring big, in the 70th percentile for weight, and Evelyn's blood pressure was creeping up in ways that made the doctor frown. "Not dangerous yet," he said, "but we're watching it. If it gets worse, we might need to consider early delivery." "How early?" Roman asked. He'd been at every appointment since the attack, standing beside Evelyn and asking detailed questions like he was preparing for a board meeting. 37 weeks minimum. Earlier if there are complications. But let's not borrow trouble. Mrs. Valenti is young and healthy. We just need to monitor closely. Monitoring meant more appointments, more tests, more time spent being examined like a science project. Evelyn was so tired of doctors and schedules and being told what she could and couldn't do. Her whole pregnancy had been controlled and managed, and she was starting to resent it. "I want to go for a walk," she told Roman after one particularly frustrating appointment. "A real walk, not around the property with guards hovering. I want to go into town, look at shops, feel normal for 5 minutes." "Your blood pressure is fine. Dr. Reeves said I can have normal activity. Walking is normal activity." Roman looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Evelyn's expression must have convinced him this wasn't a fight he'd win. "Okay, but I'm coming with you, and so is security. I can live with that." They went the next day, just to the small town 15 minutes away, but to Evelyn it felt like an adventure. They walked down Main Street looking at antique shops and cafes, Roman's hand on her lower back and 2 guards trailing at a discreet distance. People stared, probably recognizing Roman, definitely noticing the very pregnant woman waddling beside him, but no one approached. "You doing okay?" Roman asked when Evelyn stopped to catch her breath outside a bookstore. "Yeah, just heavy." She put a hand on her stomach, Juliet sitting on everything important. "You want to sit down? There's a cafe across the street." They got coffee, decaf for Evelyn, which she hated but accepted, and sat by the window watching small-town life happen. An old couple walking a dog, a teenager on a skateboard, a mother with a stroller trying to wrangle a toddler who wanted to look at everything. "That'll be us in a year," Evelyn said, nodding toward the frazzled mother. "Except with better security." Roman. "What?" "I'm just saying our toddler will have armed guards. It's different." Evelyn laughed despite herself. "You're impossible. You married me anyway. Didn't have much choice at the time." "And now?" Roman asked. "If you could go back, knowing everything that happened, would you still do it?" It was a dangerous question, the kind that required real honesty instead of politeness. Evelyn looked at him. This man who'd bought her like property, treated her like an asset, and then slowly, painfully, learned how to see her as a person. "I don't know," she admitted. "The beginning was awful. You were awful. I spent months feeling like I'd sold my soul." "Fair." But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like a prison sentence and started feeling like something else, something that might actually become real. She put her hand over his on the table. "So yeah, I think I would, even knowing how hard it was going to be." Roman was quiet for a moment, then, "I wouldn't." That hurt more than Evelyn expected. "What?" "If I could go back, I wouldn't make you marry me. Wouldn't put you through any of this. You deserved better than being traded like currency to secure an alliance." He turned his hand over, laced his fingers through hers. "But I can't go back, so instead I'm trying to build something that makes the beginning worth it. Something that gives Juliet the childhood we didn't have." "We're really doing this, aren't we? Trying to be actual parents instead of just people who happen to have a baby together." "Trying being the key word. I have no idea what I'm doing." "Neither do I. We'll figure it out together." They finished their coffee and walked back to the car, and Evelyn felt something settle in her chest. They weren't perfect, weren't even close, but they were trying, and maybe that was enough. Week 35 brought a different kind of crisis. Evelyn woke up at 2 in the morning with contractions that felt like her entire body was being squeezed in a vice. She tried to breathe through them, tried to convince herself it was just Braxton Hicks, but when they didn't stop after an hour, she woke Roman. "Something's wrong," she said. He was out of bed and on the phone with Dr. Reeves before she finished the sentence. 10 minutes later, they were in the car heading to the hospital, Evelyn gripping the door handle and trying not to panic while Roman drove too fast and talked to the doctor on speaker. "How far apart are the contractions?" Dr. Reeves asked. 7 minutes, Evelyn managed between breaths. "Okay, that's early, but not emergency territory. Get to the hospital. We'll assess when you arrive. Could be false labor, but we need to be sure." It was false labor. 3 hours of monitoring and tests confirmed that Juliet was just practicing, not actually ready to make her appearance. But the scare was enough to make Dr. Reeves change his protocols. "I want you on modified bed rest," he said. "Nothing strenuous. If you're not sitting or lying down, you should be. We need to get you to at least 37 weeks. "How modified?" Evelyn asked, already dreading the answer. Very. Think of yourself as a couch ornament for the next 2 weeks. Roman hired a nurse to stay at the house full-time. Her name was Sharon. She was probably 60, and she took her job so seriously that Evelyn started calling her the warden behind her back. Sharon monitored everything, what Evelyn ate, how long she stood, whether she was drinking enough water. It was suffocating and necessary, and Evelyn hated every minute of it. "I'm going to lose my mind," she told Maria one afternoon while Sharon was checking her blood pressure for the third time that day. "2 more weeks, dear. You can survive 2 weeks." "I'm not sure I can. I feel like a prisoner again." "The difference is this time it's for your daughter, not because someone's controlling you." Maria squeezed her hand. "That matters." It did matter. Evelyn knew that logically. But being stuck on the couch while Roman was out handling business and the nursery was finally finished, and there were 1,000 things she wanted to do, felt like torture. Roman tried to help. He worked from home when he could, set up his laptop in their bedroom so Evelyn wouldn't be alone, brought her books and magazines and every streaming service known to humanity, sat with her for hours talking about nothing important just to pass the time. "Tell me about your childhood," Evelyn said one afternoon when she was so bored she could scream. "Before everything went bad." Roman looked uncomfortable with the question. He never talked about his past, not really, but after a moment he started speaking. "My mother used to take me to the park every Sunday. There was this playground with these swings that went really high, and she'd push me for hours if I asked, said she loved hearing me laugh." His expression softened with memory. "She was gentle, kind, everything my father wasn't. I think that's why he married her, wanted something soft he could control." "But she wasn't controllable." "No, she had her own mind, her own opinions. Used to argue with him about the business, about how he was raising me. They fought a lot." Roman's jaw tightened. "After she died, he blamed me. Said if I'd been a better son, she wouldn't have tried for another baby, wouldn't have died." "That's insane. You were 8 years old." "I know that now. Didn't know it then. Spent years trying to be perfect enough that he'd stop hating me." He looked at Evelyn. "That's why I was so controlling with you at the beginning. It's all I knew. Control everything, manage every variable, and maybe nothing bad will happen." "But bad things happen anyway." "Yeah, they do, which is why I'm trying to learn a different way." He put his hand on her stomach. "For her." Juliet kicked in response, and they both smiled. Their daughter had impeccable timing. Week 37 arrived like a finish line. Dr. Reeves did a full exam, declared Juliet healthy and ready whenever she decided to make her entrance, and cleared Evelyn for normal activity. "She could come tonight or 3 weeks from now," he said. "Babies operate on their own schedule, but whenever she arrives, you're good to go." The relief Evelyn felt at being released from bed rest was almost physical. She spent the next 2 days doing everything Sharon had forbidden, walking around the house, organizing the nursery for the 100th time, cooking with Maria, feeling human again. Roman watched her with amusement and poorly concealed anxiety. "What?" Evelyn asked when she caught him staring for the third time that day. "Nothing. Just wondering when my phone's going to ring telling me you're in labor. Could be weeks still. Could be tonight." It was neither. Juliet waited another week and a half until Evelyn was 38.5 weeks pregnant and so uncomfortable she could barely sleep. When labor actually started, it was 3 in the morning and nothing like the dramatic water-breaking scenes from movies. Just cramping that gradually got worse until Evelyn realized these weren't practice contractions anymore. These were the real thing. "Roman," she said, shaking him awake, "it's time." He was up instantly, alert in a way that would have been impressive if Evelyn wasn't currently writing out a contraction that felt like her entire midsection was trying to turn inside out. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Roman calling Dr. Reeves, calling security to notify them, calling Maria to tell her they were going. Evelyn focused on breathing and not panicking, and trying to remember everything she'd read about labor in the dozen books Roman had bought her. Labor was long, 14 hours of contractions that got progressively worse, of doctors and nurses checking her dilation, of Roman holding her hand and looking more terrified than she'd ever seen him. At one point around hour 10, when Evelyn was exhausted and in pain and seriously reconsidering every choice that had led to this moment, she looked at him and said, "I can't do this." "Yes, you can." "No, I really can't. This is impossible." You're the strongest person I know. If anyone can do this, it's you. You're just saying that. I'm saying it because it's true. Roman brushed hair off her forehead. You survived me at my worst. You survived an attack on our home. You can survive this. It wasn't exactly poetry, but it helped. Evelyn gripped his hand through the next contraction and the one after that, and the 100 that followed until finally, Dr. Reeves said she could push. That part was a blur of pain and effort, and Roman's voice in her ear telling her she was doing great, almost there, just a little more. And then suddenly there was crying, not hers, though she was crying too, and a nurse was putting a tiny, screaming, perfect person on her chest. Juliette Marie Valenti entered the world at 6:43 p.m., weighing 7 pounds 9 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and her father's eyes and lungs that worked extremely well based on how loudly she was protesting this whole being-born situation. She's perfect, Evelyn said, staring down at her daughter in complete awe. She's loud, Roman said, but he was crying too. Actually crying, tears running down his face, as he looked at his daughter like she was the most miraculous thing he'd ever seen. Want to hold her? Evelyn asked. Roman looked terrified. I don't know how. Neither do I. We'll learn together. The nurse showed him how to support Juliette's head, and Roman took his daughter with the kind of careful reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts. He stared at her like he couldn't quite believe she was real, and Juliette stopped crying long enough to stare back with unfocused, newborn eyes. Hi, baby girl, Roman said softly. I'm your dad. I know I'm going to mess this up sometimes, but I promise I'm going to try really hard not to. And your mom, she's going to be amazing at this. You're so lucky you got her. Evelyn was crying again, couldn't seem to stop, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming reality of what they'd created, this tiny person who was half her, half Roman, and entirely their responsibility. We're parents, she said. We're parents, Roman repeated, sounding just as stunned as she felt. The first few weeks home were chaos. Juliette had her days and nights confused, which meant she slept peacefully during the day and screamed like she was being murdered from midnight to 5 a.m. Evelyn was exhausted in a way she'd never experienced before, functioning on 2-hour blocks of sleep and caffeine and sheer determination. Roman tried to help, he really did. But watching him attempt to change a diaper while Juliette screamed and peed on him simultaneously was almost funny enough to make the sleep deprivation worth it. This is harder than running a criminal empire, he said one night at 3 a.m. while trying to figure out why Juliette wouldn't stop crying. That's because criminal empires don't need to be fed every 2 hours. Have you tried feeding her? Yes, Roman. I've tried feeding her and changing her and burping her and singing to her. She just wants to scream. Maybe she's got colic. Or maybe she's just a baby, and this is what babies do. Maria appeared in the doorway like an angel of mercy. Give her here. You two go sleep for a few hours. I've got her. You don't have to, Evelyn started. I raised 3 babies. I know what I'm doing. Go. Sleep. They went. Collapsed into bed together and passed out immediately, and when Evelyn woke up 4 hours later to the sound of Juliette fussing, she felt almost human again. It got easier, slowly. By week 6, Juliette started sleeping in 3-hour chunks. By week 8, she smiled for the first time, a real smile, not gas, and both Roman and Evelyn nearly cried. By week 12, they'd developed something resembling a routine. Roman started working from home more, set up an office in the suite next to the nursery so he could be close when Evelyn needed help. He took the early morning shift so Evelyn could sleep in, and he was surprisingly good at it. Walking around with Juliette against his chest, talking to her about business deals and territory acquisitions like she understood any of it. You're going to give her a complex, Evelyn said one morning, finding him in the nursery explaining the finer points of contract negotiation to their 3-month-old daughter. She should understand the business. When she's older, she can decide if she wants to be part of it. What if she wants nothing to do with it? Then she doesn't have to. That's the whole point. Roman adjusted Juliette in his arms. I'm building something she can walk away from if she wants. Something that won't pull her back in through violence or obligation. She gets to choose her own life. It was maybe the clearest articulation of what he'd been working toward. Not just going legitimate, but creating a future where Juliette had options. Where she could be anything she wanted without the family business being an anchor around her neck. You're a good father, Evelyn said. I'm a work in progress. Aren't we all? The transition Roman had started was mostly complete by Juliet's first birthday. He'd sold off the last of the illegal operations, reinvested everything into legitimate businesses, and managed to do it without starting any new wars. A few old rivals had tested him, but Roman had handled it with a combination of business acumen and carefully applied pressure that reminded Evelyn he hadn't survived this long by being soft. But he was different now, softer in the ways that mattered. He came home every night for dinner. He took Sundays off completely. He'd even hired a CEO to run the day-to-day operations so he could focus on being present for Juliet. She won't remember this, Evelyn told him one Sunday afternoon. They were in the park, the same one Roman's mother used to take him to, watching Juliet toddle around on unsteady legs while Maria hovered nearby ready to catch her. I'll remember it, Roman said. That's what matters. Evelyn leaned into him, and Roman wrapped his arm around her shoulders. They stood like that watching their daughter discover the world, and Evelyn felt something she'd spent the past 2 years building toward. Contentment. Real, solid, earned contentment. I love you, she said. First time she'd said it. First time she'd been sure enough to say it out loud. Roman went very still. Then he turned to look at her, something vulnerable in his expression. You don't have to say that. I know. I'm saying it anyway. I love you, Roman. Not because we have a daughter together. Not because you're trying to be better. Because of who you are right now, in this moment. Imperfect and difficult and trying so hard to build something good. He kissed her then, soft and careful and full of things he probably didn't have words for. When he pulled back, he was smiling. I love you too. Think I have for a while now, just didn't know how to say it. You just did. They went back to watching Juliet, who discovered a dandelion and was trying to eat it despite Maria's gentle protests. Their daughter, their life, their hard-won, imperfect, real family. Later that night, after Juliet was asleep and the house was quiet, Roman found Evelyn in the nursery. She was sitting in the rocking chair they'd picked out together, just looking at their daughter sleep. You okay? He asked. Yeah, just thinking. About what? About how far we've come. About how I showed up to our wedding thinking my life was over, and now... She gestured at the nursery, at the sleeping baby, at the life they'd built. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else. Roman sat on the floor beside the rocking chair, took her hand. I'm sorry for how I was at the beginning, for treating you like property instead of a person. I know you are, and I forgive you, but more than that, I'm grateful. For what? For proving people can change, for showing me that even the worst beginning can turn into something beautiful if both people are willing to work for it. Evelyn squeezed his hand. We could have stayed in that cold, transactional marriage forever, but we didn't. We chose each other, chose to build something real. Best decision I ever made. Second best. First was marrying me. Roman laughed quietly. Fair point. They sat there in the nursery they'd built together, holding hands and watching their daughter sleep, and Evelyn thought about the girl she'd been on her wedding day, 18 and terrified and certain she'd just signed away her entire future for a business deal. That girl would have never believed this was possible, would have never imagined falling in love with the man who'd bought her like property, would have never thought she could find happiness in what started as a gilded cage. But she had. They both had. And in doing so, they'd proven something Evelyn's father and Roman's father and everyone who'd arranged this marriage had never understood. That people were more than contracts and obligations. That love was something you chose every day, not something that happened to you. That family wasn't about blood or duty, but about the people you decided to fight for. Juliet stirred in her crib, making the small sounds that meant she'd be awake and demanding food in about 5 minutes. Evelyn stood and Roman stood with her, both of them moving to the crib to look down at their daughter. Ready for another night? Roman asked. With you? Always. They lifted Juliet together, this tiny person they'd made who represented everything they'd overcome and everything they were building toward. And as Evelyn settled into the rocking chair with her daughter in her arms and her husband beside her, she realized something important. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living, really living, building a future that belonged to her instead of being handed down from people who saw her as a commodity. She'd entered this marriage as Evelyn Cross, a girl with no choices and no power. She'd become Evelyn Valenti, a woman who'd learned to claim her own life, a mother, a wife, a partner to a man who'd learned to see her as an equal instead of an asset. The gilded cage she'd walked into on her wedding day had become something else entirely. Not a prison, but a home. Not a transaction, but a family. Not an ending, but a beginning. And standing in that nursery with everything she'd fought for surrounding her, Evelyn finally understood what freedom actually meant. Not the absence of obligation or duty, but the power to choose who you wanted to be despite them. She chose this. All of it. The imperfect husband who was learning how to love. The daughter who would grow up knowing she was wanted, not obligated. The life they were building together, one difficult choice at a time. It wasn't the fairy tale she'd imagined as a child. It was better. Because it was real and earned and entirely theirs.